Welcome to Inside Redesign. This is a webinar dedicated to a deeper look at redesign. We're going to look at where it's at and where it's going. And for this webinar, our host will be Dr. Steve Wyckoff and myself, Dr. Mike Cook. And who better to have for our first one than Commissioner of Education, Dr. Randy Watson. So,
hello, everyone.
So with that, I'll kick it over to Steve and we'll get started. And thank you, Dr. Watson, for being with us today.
Mike, it's my pleasure. Steve, I just asked that you make the questions easy, okay? Consider your interviewee here.
Yeah, you know, when we sent you the questions, we did it in crayon. I don't know how much easier you could ask.
I know, but it wasn't that I could color by number, so I was thrown off a little bit. So appreciate that.
We are going to make it easy. You know, we had a discussion about what did we want to do in this first webinar, and because it was fresh on our minds, and it's kind of our superintendents brought it up last month, and we had a discussion. We want to talk to you about the STAR recognition program.
Okay.
And you know, maybe just a little background. And Randy, we're going to put some slides up there. We're going to hit one up there for you to take a look at. And technology. And we're going to go to the second one. Randy, we put this slide together, and we know the recognition program looks at state goals and the definition of a successful Kansan. And you can see there that we highlighted those that are being awarded this year, 1920, in purple, and then next year's in the aqua. So you take a minute and tell us, you know, why they were chosen. You know, we know these are the state goals and the definition of a successful Kansan, but give us a little background on this.
Sure. Hey, Steve, on my computer, I'm seeing the first slide that says ESSDACK, and the PowerPoint isn't live. So I can see the second slide, but I can't read it. Does that make sense? It looks.
We're going to try that again.
Okay.
Once again, we love that technology.
Yeah.
I could go off a memory of how we got there, but since you've gone to the. Oh, there we go.
Okay. So
it's still yeah, I'm looking at it now like it's a presenter view, but just so that you know.
Okay.
Anyway, what we did is we took the two parts of the state goals that the state board set up, and then definition of successful high school graduate that the Kansas superintendents put together a few years ago for the state board. And we decided that we would recognize school districts that are achieving high levels in those areas independent of each other, because the state board said, you know, to do really well, you're going to have to address social and emotional growth. To do really well, with kids and make them successful, you're going to have to do civic engagement. To do well, they have to have academic skills. And so all that needs to be done. So that's how we came up with the 8 areas. This year, we kicked it off with 4 areas, which we call the quantitative, meaning those are just the ones you can measure by numbers. The qualitative, social, emotional, civic engagement, individual plans of study, and kindergarten readiness will be rolled out this spring for recognition in next fall. And those will be qualitative, meaning you simply apply to it. So all these have various levels to them. We start with gold, silver, bronze, and copper. And even if you're awarded at the copper level in any of these, you are doing really well. So we set the bar for what it meant to be post-secondary ready in each of these areas. So it's new. It gets us away from the No Child Left Behind era of the standards of excellence, which were just based on test scores. And it tries to look at the entire child through the lens of a district and what they can achieve.
Okay. Randy, we're gonna put a slide up here for everybody out there in the audience that if you want copies of these, and we're going to get to them in just a second, if you just go to ksde.org, search for Kansans STAR recognition, you'll get to all the information on how the how you're judged to get these this recognition. So again, ksde.org, and search for Kansans CanStar recognition, and it'll take you to the front page on that. Okay, Glenn. And so the first one is the Commissioner's Award. And we put the abbreviated definition up on the screen, but when you go to the website, you can see the entire definition.
Hey, Steve, can I interrupt as we're going to go through each one of these, I assume, right?
Yes.
That I want people to know, because people kind of fall into, I don't know, 3 or 4 camps. One is, wow, I'm excited, we got recognized. What is it? And I know we're going to go over that. Second is, well, yeah, we got recognized, and some areas we didn't. How's our neighbor doing? We'd like to see how we compare in our league. And then others say, you know what, we're not doing very good, so don't tell me about it. I don't want to know. This is not a competition. This is for you to take a look at yourself, measure yourself against what is the gold standard that we think will drive success of kids, and then go to work on that within your KISA process or your redesign process, because it'll give you a balance of where you're stronger and where you're weaker.
Sure.
We have not shared, and the rank order, because that's not really our purpose of this. This isn't rank order. It's for Medicine Lodge to look at Medicine Lodge, and then for Pratt to look at Pratt. And really, it's not to compare to each other. It's really to compare against that standard of trying to get to the gold standard. So
Yeah.
with that,
well,
let's
let me
go
ask
over
you a
each one of
question.
them.
That the way this came to us was one of our superintendents got an invitation to a banquet
Yes.
and said, what did I do to get this? What did they do to get that?
We rolled out 4 of the quantitative recognitions this year, and we'll go over those in just a second. And those districts that were invited to the banquet hit some level on all 4 of those recognition patterns. That's what they have in common.
How many districts got that invitation?
40. So
40.
you see, I'm hesitant, because then that starts to get into winners and losers, and we don't think about that. Because here's what's interesting. In the future, we could literally recognize 300. That's the public and the private. We could literally, because it's not like what happened in most cases across Kansas last night. Some basketball teams won and some lost. In this recognition, it's the standard that you have to hit. So every single district has the same opportunity to hit it. And it's not that I hit it and you don't. Or like when we recognize the schools of character, someone's going to win that award, and then that means some people aren't.
Yeah.
In this case, everyone could be at the gold level. Everyone could be at the copper level. Everyone could have all 8 levels recognized next fall. And thus, we hope that over time, those 40 districts will grow to 60, to 75, to 150. That would be our hope.
And ultimately, to hit the Kansas Can vision, we'd want all
Yes.
300.
Yes.
That's going to be quite a banquet.
Well, you know what? I hope we do it. We just want to celebrate those that are working hard and getting the outcomes. Again, looking at the whole child and the various components of the whole child. So,
Okay, so we're going to go over the 4 awards
okay.
or recognitions. And if somebody got a bronze on all 4 of them, they would have been invited.
Oh, yes, because you know what? Let me ask you, Steve, have you ever been invited to the Olympics?
No.
No, it's hard. It's hard to get to the Olympic trials. It's even harder to get to the Olympics. But I have a sound clip of the downhill giant slalom in the most recent Winter Games. And it's a sound clip of little sounds, like it's represented on a dot. So every time someone crosses a finish line, it's a beep, beep. The difference between the person that stood on the gold stand and the one that finished last in the Olympics, it sounded like this: beep, beep. That was all through, like 36 people.
Yeah.
The difference was less than a second and a half. So when we say, oh, I only got a copper, that's rocking, because when we talk about this, the level that we set for these is higher than it's ever been. And the reason is because our research says it has to be that high in every one of these levels for you to help kids become successful when they graduate. It isn't to be the highest or the toughest or any of that. It's to say, if we're going to really help 100% of our kids graduate high school and execute their post-secondary plan, this is the level that you have to be at in all 8 of these areas.
Randy, is it fair to say that the goal of redesign is for everybody to be at this banquet?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
One last question before we start digging in. Will each district, will each superintendent receive some kind of document that says, here are the 4, here's what was awarded, here's how you did?
Yeah, everyone that will, we can do that. This year, we sent a letter, an email out to those that were recognized.
Yeah.
And if you were not recognized in anything, you just didn't receive anything.
We had a superintendent say, though, I didn't get one of those invitations, but I'd sure like to know how I did.
Oh, well,
So he said, well,
we can certainly share that. That data's been shared a lot of times in a lot of different ways, but yes, we can share that.
I think
you guys all have that data too. As we go over it, you'll see it's not a secret piece of data that we haven't been talking about. For
I think they just wanted it in one location.
Sure.
Easy to read for them.
I can tell you that in the new one-page accountability report that's front and back, it's front and center at the very top.
Okay.
So that's where you can easily find it. But yeah, that's a good idea, Steve. Put something out even for those that weren't recognized.
Commissioner's Award. What did you?
You want to start there?
Yeah, let's start there.
Okay, so I want to come back to my sport analogy. Last night across Kansas, basketball teams competed, and they generally, most of those teams competed in a league. They had a league game on a Tuesday night. So I know I was talking to Brad, Jeff West, played Nemaha Central, for example, in basketball. So most of our school districts are in leagues, and those leagues are formed around 2 criteria generally: location and size. So we honor at the end of the year here in basketball, because we're in basketball season and wrestling season, the 1A schools will go to postseason competition and eventually play for a 1A state championship. But they won't play the 3A state champion. They won't play the 6A. We won't have Little River playing Lawrence. And we think we don't do that because we believe size matters and that the bigger schools would dominate the smaller ones overall. There'd be an exception, but overall. We've never looked at that as it relates to success of students. We've just said, oh, okay, Andover, a really great redesigned school district. We're going to look at how you do, and we're going to look at a neighbor. So you think about leagues, El Dorado. But the truth is, El Dorado and Andover serve much different populations of students, and we've never taken that into consideration, just like Keisha takes in size of school districts and classifications. So the Commissioner's Award looks at that, looks at your post-secondary effectiveness, and then our researchers said, okay, Burton, based upon your risk factors, we believe you should be at this level. And Concordia, we believe you, based upon your risk factors, you should be at this level. The Commissioner's Award are for those districts that exceed themselves, meaning they're outproducing what we would predict, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Glenn, would you pop that next slide up? And for those that want to see the definition.
It's right there. So you take a look and again, use an example. So we would have Eureka, and we would predict, I'm making up the numbers here. We would predict that Eureka would have a post-secondary effective rate somewhere between 38 and 42, meaning 38% of 42%. That is based upon those factors that they have of poverty, chronic absenteeism, and student mobility, meaning how many students are on free lunch and how many years have they been on free lunch. So if every student in Eureka has been on free lunch for all 13 years, they get 13 times the number of students. How many students are chronically absent, meaning missing more than 10% of the days of school? And how many students change schools multiple times in that school year? Those are the risk factors that our research say make it difficult then to graduate high school and go on to earn another piece of paper. The Commissioner's Award said, okay, Eureka, we would predict you to be between 38 and 42. If you exceed that range above a 0.4 standard deviation, so in that example, 38 to 42, if you're, say, above 43 and a half, you receive a Commissioner's Award. If you beat that by 1 standard deviation to 1.99 standard deviations, let's say you're at 49, then you're going to get a Commissioner's Award with honors. And if you're 2 standard deviations above what we would predict, you're going to get the highest award possible. It's the Commissioner's Award with highest distinction. And I went to those school districts that were the Commissioner's Award with highest distinction this year to give them that recognition. That is entirely based on your own risk factors and how you did relative to those risk factors and your own predictability. Has nothing to do with any other school district. It's just how did you do compared to yourself?
Great. Yeah. And Randy, at the end, we took a copy of the state's report card and showed where that data shows up every year on there. So we'll show that at the end for districts, so they kind of get an idea where they can find that data if they haven't been using it. The second one then, Glenn, if you'd hit the slide, is graduation rate. Yeah, high school graduation rate.
And again, on my screen, it's not changing. So I'm going to just go off of memory.
Okay.
So again, we are honoring copper, bronze, silver, gold, those 4 areas. And in graduation rate, it starts at, the state average is 87.5. And if you're above the state average, you're copper. And if you're above 95%, you're gold. And the others, since I can't see the slide and I don't have it memorized, the other levels are somewhere between 88% and 95.
Yeah.
95% is what our researchers say will lead you to having every kid graduate high school. It's 95%. We'd like 100, but we know that could be just one student. That will lead you then to having kids go on to be more successful. That also leads the world. There's no other state in the country has a 95% graduation rate. So that's how you were recognized in graduation. But there's a but in here. You can only be recognized on graduation rate if you are within the range of your post-secondary effective predictive value, or you're above that range. So the other side of the Commissioner's Award is, what if I'm predicted, again, Eureka, and my numbers are made up here, was predicted to be effectiveness of 38 to 42, and they're at 25. That would exclude them from being recognized on graduation. And the reason for that is we don't want school districts just graduating kids that do not have the skill set to go on and execute a post-secondary plan. So there you can see, and I can see now too, where the copper, the bronze, and the silver and the gold levels are. Now, Steve and Mike, someone's going to say, well, it's all about the state average then, and you're going to see this when we get to academic. It is right now. When the state average gets to 90%, we're going to recognize all those districts then that achieve this level at 90% and above. Does that make sense? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
State average goes up about 90. We're going to keep it right there because we know that eventually the state average could get close to 93, 95%, and it almost becomes impossible. So right now it's above the state average, but if the state average climbs to 90%, that'll be the baseline for the future recognitions for graduation.
Yeah,
Yep.
that makes total sense.
We'll see that when we get to academic also. we'll talk about that too.
Well, let's go to the next one, post-secondary effectiveness rate.
Okay. So I also ought to mention that graduation, well, let me get on post-secondary. So the post-secondary effective rate is taking a look at how many kids graduate and how many kids 2 years out of high school have either gone on to earn a certificate, so a welding certificate, diesel mechanic certificate, an associate degree, a baccalaureate, master's, or PhD, or they're still in school actively pursuing it and on path to finish one of those programs. So it's 2 years out of high school. We take a snapshot and we ask the question, have you graduated high school and have you finished something else, a second piece of paper, or are you still pursuing it? And if the answer is yes, you're counted in the post-secondary effective rate. Now, we also average that over 5 years for our smaller school districts. So I've had some people ask and say, you know, those outline years in 13 and 14 weren't very good, Randy, because we weren't focused on that yet. And I say, well, yes, but if I look at it 1 year, you're not gonna like that when 1 or 2 kids swing that really violently. So we look at it over a 5-year average, knowing that every year we drop a year off and we add a year. So this next year, on July 1 of 2020, we'll take a look at the class of 18, and we'll be looking at the classes 14 to 18. This year, we've been looking at the classes of 13 to 17. If you're graduating and 70% and enough kids are going on to earn that second piece of paper or still in school, and that number's above 70%, you're at gold. If that is at greater than 49.9, which is above the state average, you're at copper. And again, we haven't set the mark, but when that state average goes up, we will eventually set a static mark that copper hits at. Gold will always be whatever the Georgetown Policy Institute says the state of Kansas needs for full employment. Right now, that's 71%, so we just rounded to 70. The new Georgetown study should be coming out any month. If that goes up, guess what? We're going to move that up. Again, not because we're trying to make it hard or easy, it's because we're trying to equate it to what is the job market in Kansas.
Randy, clarify one thing for me. You said the percentage of graduates, but isn't the post-secondary effectiveness rate based on the cohort of 9th graders that started together?
Yes, I'm sorry. That's what
Okay.
I misspoke. It takes into, I mean, if you drop out of school, you're not going to be counted in the post-secondary effective rate. You have to graduate high school and go on.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Glenn, give us the next slide, would you? Okay, so
there's the chart that's going to give you 3 things. It gives you graduation rate, post-secondary effective rate. It's also going to give you your commissioner's award.
Glenn,
I mean, you're going to be able to see all that because in this example, you see here, this is the state of Kansas. So you can see that the 5-year average was 86%. The 5-year average for post-secondary effective was 48. And in this example, because it's the state of Kansas, there's no predictive value. But if this was a school district we were showing, you would see a predictive value there. Yeah. And if you knew that I was way ahead of that predictive value, that's where the commissioner's award comes into play.
Right. Randy, is there a reason why you don't do that predictive rate for the state?
I don't know why we haven't. I've never been asked that question, and I don't know. I guess we probably could. We did, yeah, we probably could.
I haven't thought deeply about it. I don't know what the math would be like on that, but it might be interesting to see what that would be for the state.
So to give you an example, the school district that has the highest risk, meaning the greatest number of free lunch kids, the greatest number of mobility, greatest number of chronic absenteeism, by far. Number 2 is really not close. We want to guess, Mike and Steve?
I know
highest risk factors in the state.
A year ago, I think it was Chase Raymond. But I don't know now.
Chase Raymond was doing really well. They were They were way above that a year ago, that their
Okay.
mark.
What is
The
this?
highest risk factor, just pure risk, is in Kansas City, Kansas.
Oh,
That's not a shock.
yeah,
No.
makes sense.
And then our lowest risk would be in our private accredited schools in the Catholic diocese.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you willing to tell us who was the highest above their predictive rate?
Yes, we had several that were over 2 standard deviations above their predictive rate. And I honored all of those people by going there. And now I'm going off the top of my head, which is extremely dangerous. I'm going to leave some people out. So let's see if I can get, I believe we had 8. Hanover Lynn School District, Barnes, Hanover Lynn, Weskin, Dighton, Frontenac, and now I'm starting to draw a blank where all I went this fall. But and I don't want to slide anyone, so I shouldn't have even started down this road. Is Mike looking it up?
No,
He's writing them down as you go through them.
so I was
know,
wondering
I'm gonna-
about Ellenwood.
Ellenwood. How could I forget Ellenwood? I'm in trouble already. I'm just going to look here because I have it written down. I did all that this fall. While I'm trying to think, and you'll come up with some. Just to give you an idea, 104 school districts were recognized for the Commissioner's Award, or 35% of school districts. 8 of them at the highest honor and distinction. So that just gives you an idea
Yeah.
of that.
Randy,
I'm
is it
looking
fair
at-
to say those districts that were 2 standard deviations above their predictive rate, they're doing something really well with their at-risk kids?
Yes. Again, because they're beating themselves, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a competition, and you could say of those school districts, which one was higher, which one was lower. It didn't matter. They were 2 standard deviations above their risk factors, and that's what was important. And that's why that confidence interval you see on your screen is so important. So look at that range. So let's just say in this example, the range was again 38 to 42%. And in this example, the state is at 48. And you were at 38 to 42 as our predictive. You're 6 points higher than that predictive. That's a Commissioner's Award.
Yeah.
And someone could say, well, you're just at the state average. Yes, but your risk factors are so much greater than some other people, and you overcame that. That we're recognizing that.
Let's go on to the Academic Award.
Okay. So right now, we're looking at, it's kind of jumping all over. I had it.
Right
There it is.
Right there.
Academically prepared for post-secondary success. So it is exactly what we're saying. What is the academic level that you need to be at to be prepared academically to go to Washburn Tech, to go to Fort Hays State, to go to any Baker University? What is that academic level? Well, to be there, you have to score at levels 3 and 4 in math, English language arts, and science. So it's a combination of all the grades in all 3 assessed areas. And if 75% of your kids are academically ready at that level, you're at the gold level. If you're above 49.9%, and I think that is incorrect, Steve and Mike, I think that's more like 33% at the copper level. So you might want to check that slide. I'm going off of memory, but that looks like that's the post-secondary effectiveness. And the copper level is lower than that. It's in the low to mid 30s. Then it starts at copper. Again, when this reaches a certain level, we will move it to a static level. Right now, it's just, are you above the state average? That starts the recognition all the way up to gold at 75. The requirement here is you have to have 95% participation in all 3 assessment areas. That's not a problem in Kansas because you get dinged on the federal status if you don't do that.
Sure, sure. Randy, some of the conversation that our superintendents have had with us about this, there seems to be a renewed interest in raising test scores, especially from legislators. Is that a fair statement?
I would say there's a renewed interest with some legislators in looking at test scores only as the sole measurement.
Okay. Is it your opinion that overall the legislators understand that what we're trying to do and think it's the right direction to go?
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
Like that's
That's
important
good.
for us to share.
So and this becomes the nuance of the message, guys, because I heard people say, well, Randy says academics don't matter. And then I've heard people say, well, look, we're going to go right back to No Child Left Behind because of this measure here on star recognition. No, we never forgot about academics. We're trying to put this in perspective. What we know is academics alone won't lead to success. Academics alone won't lead to success. There are other measures of success that science tells us need to happen and that Kansan said we wanted. Civic engagement, social emotional growth, employability skills. So all of those interpersonal, intrapersonal skills, the magic happens when they all come together. So that's why the STAR recognition program recognizes academic success as one of the 8 measures, but this measure is no more important than civic engagement or post-secondary effectiveness or individual plans of study or high school graduation. They're equally important.
Right.
I think that message gets lost though, don't you? Because
Yes.
I think I hear both sides of that, and we're not going back to one test score on one day, but we do have to raise academic readiness in conjunction with all the other things that we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in total agreement. Randy, No Child Left Behind was uncomfortable for most educators, but it's comfortable compared to redesigning for some educators too. And we have some districts that it's really comfortable to say we have to just raise test scores.
It's an easier mark.
Yeah.
It's a single measure. And when we did it, educators did that. It was a natural progression. If you look at the data of how we did things in the 1980s, we didn't even talk about students, right? I mean, we just accredited schools based upon books and licensure and everything.
Where the
So the
flagpole was
progression was,
located.
yeah, let's see if kids are learning. Well, that became a test score. Let's measure that. Now we just know more. We now know that success is that plus more, and we have to look at all that.
Yeah. Randy, we're going to go back to this slide where we look at the quantitative this year. Glenn, you want to give us one more? Okay, there you go.
And those are the ones in kind of purple.
Purple. Then next year, well, those are qualitative measures. Will that be a rubric that you look at?
Yes. And we'll be
Okay.
coming out with that rubric this spring. You'll have the spring and the summer and maybe into early fall to kind of fill that out. And if you don't want to, you just won't be recognized. There's no way for us to know on individual plans of study and civic engagement what you're doing. There's just no way for us to know, and there's no just quantifiable data. So we're gonna say, hey, if you want to be at the gold level for kindergarten readiness, you will have to have these things in place.
Yeah.
If you want to be at the copper level in kindergarten readiness, you'll want to have these things in place. We'll have school districts that we think will do really well. Say social emotional growth. Beloit School District has been doing remarkable things in this area. The Nemaha Central, remarkable things in this area. Mays, Maze Complete in particular. Remarkable things in this area. Same thing with civic engagement. We've been giving out some awards called the Civic Advocacy Network. There's some recognition going on by school. So we'll recognize the school districts, and then if you want to know who gets invited to the banquet, those that are at least at the copper level and all 8 when we come to next fall.
So next year, we double the number of measures you look at to get an invitation.
Yeah, it'll be tougher. Oh, we're
Yeah.
getting tougher.
Yeah.
Because, again, we want this to be a broad look at the whole child. And this is what we're doing. Now, you know, the social emotional growth does blend into the cognitive skill development, as do the academic skills. The employability skills are also in the social emotional domain. Those are called student success skills. It's the technical that we'll probably measure at some point. We're trying to decide how to measure that. That may come from work keys. We're just discussing it. And once we get you know, kind of established with enough kids taking the ACT, we'll probably blend the state assessments with ACT, come up with some kind of metric for the academic skills.
Okay.
So this will evolve over time, but it's just a way of recognizing those schools that are really working hard in each of these areas.
Randy, we have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, you now are bringing in data on this entire chart.
Yes.
That other 25 to 30% of kids not attending post-secondary. Number one, what's the status on that data? But number 2, that's going to impact all of these awards, isn't it?
Yes. And remember that this Georgetown study was for by the class of 2020, we had to be at 71%, which is between, now we're at 2020, and Georgetown is working on their next one, which I think is 2026 maybe. And I haven't seen it, but I hear rumors that it has actually increased, that the levels have increased. But we now are going to we have data of Kansas students graduating back to, I believe, 2010 or 2011 that are employed in Kansas, and the wage in which he or she is making, that wage. That will start to layer onto this as we look at success, and we'll be able to give that back to school districts so we can look, hey, if those kids that went on and got a baccalaureate degree, how much are they averaging, right? Those that got a 2-year associate degree, those that got certificates, those that dropped out of high school, those that went into the military. As long as they stayed in Kansas, that'll be the kicker. If they left Kansas, we don't have that data. So millions of lines of code that we're going through, but that'll be great data that we can layer with this to give us a more accurate picture of that middle class success.
Okay, perfect. And when we visited with you last, you said that data that's in that green area sometime this year.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
We're
Yeah,
looking forward to that. We think that's going to be very informative.
Yeah, it'll be all the data. That not only that in green, it'll be that in orange too.
Yeah.
It'll be, okay, here they went, but now they graduate in 2012. How much money are they making? And what was their level of education?
Yeah.
Then you can start, Whitewater Remington then can say, okay, since 2011, we've had, I'm again making up a number, we've had 40 kids on average graduate a year. And so that's, that would be 9-10 years of data. We've got now 400 kids, 350, 400 kids. We can start to kind of slice and dice that data and start taking a look at it. We have some other exciting news I can't share with you right now because it's embargoed, but we're really trying to get, and it's not by us, it's other people have embargoed it, but we're trying to get more sophisticated on our data analysis to help school districts make good sense of their programming and how that affects or does not affect a student's career choices.
Great. Oh, great. Randy, we have one more question for you. You've used this slide. We stole it from you. And you've talked that KISA 2.0 in the future is when ESSA and KISA and Redesign all merge. A couple things about this. Number one, it says 21, 22, 26. Are we getting close to merging those three?
Yes. And it's not a hard and set rule, as you can see. When the merger happens, we've said we don't know. It will be influenced by two things. One, as long as we have school districts volunteering for redesign, we're continuing to get better. I like to say this: if you look back to the space program, the Mercury rocket, the rocket that sent John Glenn into orbit, would not have gotten him to the moon, right? NASA had not yet developed the Saturn rocket. So we are better in redesign with our Apollo school districts than we were with our Mercury. Why? We've learned a lot in those years, right? We're building better engines. The research is better, clear as to what makes a difference. So as long as we have volunteers and we continue to learn, we can postpone that. If everyone says, you know, Randy, we're already doing redesign. We don't need to do it. We're already doing redesign. Okay, then we'll just make it mandatory. We'll move it into KISA, and that'll be part of accreditation. When I think it will merge is probably after everyone gets through with the first cycle of KISA 1.0. That would be my guess. But those are the factors we're looking at, Mike and Steve.
Okay. So then the very last question.
I thought that was the last question.
Well,
Trick?
this is this is the last cluster of questions.
Oh,
Okay. Obviously, the STAR recognition is around the goals and the definition of a successful high school graduate.
yes.
Are those going to become the measures that accreditation are based on?
Yes. So all you have to do is take that sheet that I use often, which has the measures at the top. It has the 4 R's in the middle. It has the rows capacities at the bottom. I hope everyone has one of those hanging up in their building or their office. The top part are the outcomes we're focused on, all of them. Then people say, well, what if I don't hit those outcomes? Then we look at the process. Is your process by which you're going about identifying your needs assessment and going about working on it, is that likely to lead to the outcomes? Where we'll get in trouble, I think, with accreditation is I don't hit the outcomes and I don't even know what KISA is, or I don't know what redesign is. So we don't have a process and we don't have any good outcomes. That doesn't leave the state board much option. So it won't just be outcomes that we're looking at, Steve, in terms of accreditation. It's always process and outcomes. Always has been. But I think everyone thought, well, it was just going to be all process. No, there are outcomes. But we know as we get, especially in this first round, that we're just rolling out. And we've had some bold school districts say, let's go redesign. We didn't expect them to be on the moon day one, right? I mean, look at the changes liberal school district have put in place. They've got a long ways to go. They'd be the first to tell you, but they're making some remarkable gains toward that. So it's process and outcomes together.
Randy, we talked with our superintendents last month at the Superintendent's Council, and we went through the 4 awards, and we asked them 2 questions at the end. One, do you think the awards or the recognition and the 4 targets are fair? And they unanimously said yes. They seem very fair. You know, we didn't just set this one magic test score number. Right. The second question we asked them was, do you believe that by achieving these, you will move towards the Kansans Can vision? And again, they said yes. And that was really important for us to hear that from our superintendents, because it told us we're on the right path.
Hey, you know what?
Right steps.
That was really important for you to just tell me that, because that was our goal when we set it out, right? Everything's supposed to move us in the same direction. So the recognition is just recognizing those that are moving in that direction. So, and if we get it wrong, we want to change. And here's what I need you, those that are listening, and you guys to do when we get suits together, curriculum leaders, principals, teachers. This is not about gaming a system. This is about improving a kid and that family's chance of having a better life. And I, like you guys have, I've sat in the seats and I've been in an era where all I had to do was artificially inflate something, and we got not only recognized, I didn't get on a list, and everything was good. If I think people are gaming that system, we're going to change it. It's not about gaming it. It's literally working hard to get to that outcome. And Mike, I want to go back to Ellenwood because I want to pick on Ellenwood a little bit. They've done some really great things. Their graduation rate's going to drop though in a year. All right. And the reason is they took some kids on faith from another school district that they thought they could really help. That was wonderful. They didn't make it. All right. They didn't get it done, but they did it for the right reasons. And that's why we look at it over a 5-year, right? We want people to do it for the right reason. So I give Ben and all the staff of administrators and teachers a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. Glenn, you can go ahead and kill the PowerPoint. Randy, one of the things that we're really focused on now with our superintendents, and I won't give away the whole thing that we're going to do this month with the Soups Council, but our discussion this month is going to be about how do you do something every single day that puts an intense focus on the success of each kid? And we've got a little challenge for our superintendents this month. So next time we're with you, we'll share exactly what we did, but we really want that intense focus on the success of each kid.
Great. And I think we can do that too. I like that strategy. That's what I think Redesign does. We get together each month in cohorts by region, and we talk about how do we move as fast as we can move. I told a group of superintendents that we have yesterday, hey, I'm a little impatient. This October will be 5 years since we launched the vision. And the response got a little defensive. It's a good friend of mine, someone I respect a lot, said, hey, we're working hard. Don't get so irritated that we haven't made that much gain in 5 years. And I lost everyone. I lost you guys.
You're back now.
We're back.
Okay. I don't see you, but hopefully you can see me. But it will be 5 years in October. And so I think often in October of 2025, what will we be talking about? Where will we be? I really am not trying to motivate anyone or inspire anyone. I want us to say, this is hard work. Let's go about it. Let's share what's going on. That's what Redesign's about. Best practices, how to do it, get our staff involved, get our communities involved, and let's go about doing this work. There you are.
The magic of technology.
It's great.
Randy, that's all we had for you today. Anything else that you want to share?
No, just I appreciate ESSDACK, appreciate the two of you. I know we had a group of superintendents, maybe other people on. I want to just say thank you. The window for Apollo Phase 2 is open right now. If small district, I just tell you, just to give you a couple, Stockton, Dighton, and again, I'm going to miss people. They're rocking it. I mean, Smuts, small district. Big districts, Olathe, Liberal, in between districts, Andover, McPherson, we go on and on. They're all different. We don't lead you through a cookie cutter. Just, as you guys know, we lead you through a process. I will tell you, we're a little bit more demanding in Apollo than we were in Mercury because we now know more, but we don't know. We're just helping you focus to get the outcome that you want. 100% of kids graduate high school, 100% of kids execute their post-secondary plan. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Randy, we want to thank you and remind everybody that on March 2nd and 3rd is the Kansans Can Symposium. And if you go to kaesa.org, you can register for the Kansans Can Symposium.
Do we have slots available? Can you still register?
They
Yes.
can still register. We're approaching 400 now.
Yep. And we only have room for 500, so jump in there.
Yeah, it's
Get in there.
Yeah, this is a great time to see all these small districts and what they're doing and what the larger districts are doing and all those in between. It's a great showcase. Can't emphasize that enough.
If
Poor districts, wealthy districts, size of district, they all vary, and you can pick and you can see them all, and they'll tell you the warts and the successes. It's hard work. It's hard work.
And if you can't find people to talk to there that you can collaborate with and gain from, you're not looking.
Yeah.
It's just, there's just too many good things that go on at that conference. So Randy, again, thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure, and we'll get you back on here. We're going to do 2 of these a month, and we want to do a deep dive like this every time we do it. So not just surface
Great.
stuff. We want to dig in a
Look
little
forward
more.
to it. Now I got to go make sure I look up those school districts I went to, because I'm gonna be getting phone calls. You didn't mention me. You came out to our district, gave us a recognition. I'm feeling really bad. Should have never gone down that road.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well,
But
we led you
I've
there.
slept since then, and I'm old, so that's what
And
happened.
as you know, Dr. Wyckoff will lead you astray. So it's his
Yes.
fault.
Given a
And
chance
thank-
every time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Randy.
Randy.
And thanks for joining us. Dr. Cook, any final words?
No, we just hope that this was of value to you, and we will continue to do this twice a month, and we'll bring you more inside redesign.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.